A black girl was humiliated by those present, but when they heard what she had inherited in the will, they suddenly went quiet. The piercing stares cut through Zara like daggers from the moment she stepped into the attorney's office. 18 years old, ebony skin, natural coiled hair, and thrift store clothes. That was all it took for the elite Reynolds family to silently declare her an outsider, an intruder in their polished world of privilege. "Who let the cleaning girl into our private meeting?" Nathan Reynolds's words hung in the air like poison. The nephew of the late business magnate Thomas Reynolds didn't even try to mask his contempt, his question triggering waves of muffled laughter around the room. Each chuckle was another needle piercing Zara's armor she had spent years building, one painful encounter at a time. Zara stood frozen, her eyes locked on the empty mahogany chair in the center of the room. The weight of being alone, truly alone, in this sea of hostile faces made her chest tighten, but years of practice had taught her how to breathe through the pain, how to survive in spaces where she was unwelcome. "Must be another one of my brother's charity projects," Margaret drawled, her fingers dripping with diamonds worth more than what Zara's mother earned in 5 years. The woman didn't even lower her voice as she added, "She's probably here begging for a handout." How many times had Zara heard these whispers? How many times had she been dismissed, overlooked, erased? Taking a deep, steadying breath, she fought back the burning sensation in her throat. "They don't get to see me break. Not today. Not ever." Her eyes drifted across the room, taking in the framed photographs, golden certificates, and exotic vacation snapshots. Testaments to the empire Thomas Reynolds had meticulously built over 5 decades. An empire built partly on the backs of people who looked just like her. "The girl is obviously lost," remarked William, the eldest son who now ran the family businesses, his voice dripping with artificial concern that couldn't mask his disdain. "Someone should escort her out before Mr. Miller arrives. This is simply embarrassing." What none of them noticed was the slight knowing smile that flickered across Zara's lips when Jonathan Miller, the family attorney of 25 years, entered the room carrying a worn leather briefcase. His weathered face betrayed nothing as he acknowledged each Reynolds family member with a perfunctory nod. "Miss Zara," he said finally, gesturing towards the only empty chair, the one positioned right beside his desk. "Please." The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan nearly choked on his champagne. Margaret's knuckles turned white as she clutched her designer purse, like it might somehow save her from whatever was happening. The tension in the room suddenly became so thick you could almost touch it. "Excuse me, Miller," William interrupted, adjusting his Italian silk tie with trembling fingers. "But do you know this girl?" The attorney nodded slightly. "Of course." His gaze swept across the room, lingering on each bewildered face. "You should all know her, too." Time seemed to stand still as Jonathan Miller delivered his next words with quiet dignity. "This is Zara Johnson, Elaine's daughter." The room collectively held its breath. "Zara has worked in this house since she was 13, helping her mother with the cleaning every weekend." His words were simple, but landed like bombs in the pristine room. "The maid's daughter?" Margaret practically spat the words. "What business does she have at a private family reading of a will?" Zara finally took her seat, her posture ramrod straight, her face a serene mask despite the hostility radiating from every corner. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry. Not here, not now, not after everything she had survived to make it to this moment. As Jonathan Miller methodically opened his briefcase, Zara felt the weight of her mother's sacrifices pressing on her shoulders. "We made it, Mom, just like he promised. We are gathered here today for the reading of the final will and testament of Thomas Reynolds," the attorney announced formally, who passed away 3 weeks ago after his battle with cancer. Sophia, who until now had been absorbed in her cell phone, seized the opportunity to take a quick photo of Zara. "Hatched gate-crashing the will," she typed rapidly, posting it on social media. "Staff trying to cash in even after the boss is gone." The post instantly began collecting likes and shares. Virtual applause for casual cruelty. Meanwhile, Nathan whispered loudly enough for his inner circle to hear, "I bet Uncle Thomas left some spare change for charity. $15,000 for the girl, maybe. Some feel-good nonsense before the real inheritance gets distributed." What no one bothered to notice was how Zara kept her eyes fixed on the attorney's hands as he removed the sealed envelope. To everyone in that room, she was invisible, except when she served as the target of their mockery. "Before we begin," Miller announced, interrupting their whispers, Thomas left a video that must be played before the formal reading. William rolled his eyes dramatically. Another one of my father's theatrical performances. Can we please just get to the business at hand? The attorney ignored him completely, activating a screen embedded in the wall. The aged face of Thomas Reynolds appeared, visibly weathered by illness, but with an unmistakable fire burning in his eyes. If you're watching this, he began, his voice raspy yet commanding, then I've departed this world. He paused, his gaze seeming to penetrate through the screen, scrutinizing each person in the room. And I imagine you're all anxious to learn how I've divided my estate. The tension crackled like electricity as Thomas Reynolds continued. But before that, I have one simple question for all of you. His eyes narrowed. Can any of you tell me the name of Elaine's daughter? An uncomfortable silence blanketed the room. William frowned deeply. Nathan scratched his neck nervously. Margaret suddenly became fascinated with her manicure. I thought as much, Thomas continued, a sad smile playing on his lips. That young woman has been working in our home for 5 years, helping her mother since she was 13. And none of you, my own flesh and blood, ever bothered to learn her name. Zara felt a lump rising in her throat as Thomas continued. I've watched how you treated her, how you treated all the staff, as if they were invisible, disposable. His expression hardened into stone. And that told me everything I needed to know about the character you've developed. The atmosphere in the room had transformed completely. Sophia had dropped her phone. Nathan swallowed hard. William shifted uncomfortably in his chair. What no one in that room could possibly imagine was that behind the dignified composure of the African-American teenager, they had all dismissed and demeaned lay a story that would alter the fate of everyone present. A truth that Thomas Reynolds had uncovered in the final months of his life. A revelation that was about to turn their privileged world completely upside down. If this tale of prejudice, dignity, and justice has stirred something inside you, make sure to subscribe to discover how a simple teenager, humiliated by an entire family of privilege, would ultimately become the catalyst for the most profound lesson they would ever receive. Thomas Reynolds' video continued, his fragile yet determined voice resonating through the now silent room. In recent months, I observed how you treated people around you, Thomas continued, his voice weakening, how you spoke to nurses, janitors, drivers. What I witnessed deeply saddened me. He paused, struggling for breath, then said, Then I noticed Zara. While you ignored her, I discovered an extraordinary young woman who studied after exhausting workdays, cared for her sick mother, and still found time to read books from my library. William jumped to his feet. This is ridiculous. Miller, this can't be legal. The attorney remained impassive. Everything is in perfect legal order, Mr. William. On screen, Thomas smiled knowingly. I imagine you're surprised. William is probably already questioning the legality of all this. The eldest son paled, hearing his father predict his exact words. What you don't know is that I spent the last 3 months talking with Zara. She would sit beside me during breaks and share her dreams of studying law. Sophia, now uncomfortable, frantically tried deleting her humiliating post. Too late. It had already been shared hundreds of times. This is Zara Johnson, Thomas continued, daughter of Elaine, who worked in our house for 15 years, even when Margaret reduced her salary while buying her 5th luxury vehicle. Margaret choked, her face flushed with shame. Zara, whom William humiliated when he spilled water on her college applications. He made her clean the floor on her knees while calling her incompetent, unaware she had just learned her mother needed expensive surgery. The video ended abruptly. Miller opened another envelope. There's one more video to show, but first, I must read the main provisions of the will. This is absurd, Nathan exploded. A maid's daughter can't inherit the empire our family built for generations. Zara finally spoke, her voice steady. Your family built nothing, Mr. Nathan. Your great-uncle Thomas started by selling produce at the market. Her eyes swept the room. The only ones born with silver spoons here are you. The silence that followed was deafening. Miller cleared his throat and read, I, Thomas Reynolds, leave to Zara Johnson 51% of Reynolds Enterprises shares, my primary residence, all properties listed in Appendix A, and $25 million in investments. This is undue influence, William shouted, face contorted with rage. That girl manipulated a dying man. Miller raised his hand. If you'll allow me to continue, there are conditions. Zara will only assume full control at age 21. Until then, the company will be managed by a board led by myself and Dr. Vanessa Harper." "Vanessa Harper?" Margaret interrupted. "The oncologist? What connection does she have to this?" As if answering, the door opened, and a distinguished black woman in her 50s entered wearing an impeccable suit. Her eyes found Zara's, offering a reassuring smile. "Dr. Harper was more than your brother's physician," Miller explained. She introduced Zara to Thomas after witnessing how she cared for Elaine in the hospital, even after you fired her mother when she became too ill to work. Dr. Harper nodded. "Elaine and I were university classmates before life took us down different paths. When I found her battling cancer similar to Thomas's, I couldn't help but notice what an extraordinary daughter she had raised." What no one realized was that this unlikely scenario began with a chance encounter 3 months earlier. Zara had gone to William's office begging for an advance on her mother's medication. He not only refused but humiliated her before his executives. "I don't have time for staff problems. If you can't afford medicine, perhaps your mother should have planned better." That evening, Dr. Harper found Zara crying in the hospital stairwell. After hearing her story, the doctor made a decision that would change everyone's future, introducing this remarkable young woman to Thomas Reynolds. "There's one more video," Miller announced, inserting another flash drive. Thomas requested it be shown only if his wishes were contested. On screen, Thomas appeared weaker, but determined. "If you're watching this, my family is challenging my decisions. I am of sound mind and judgment." His breathing labored. He continued, "I made these arrangements after months of observation and recorded conversations documenting each of your behaviors." He paused. "Zara did not manipulate me. On the contrary, she initially refused my offer. It took considerable persuasion to convince her." His eyes hardened. "As for my decision, look in the mirror. You are not my heirs because of what you've built, but through the accident of birth." The screen displayed a series of clips. William berating employees, Margaret firing Elaine, Nathan mocking an elderly driver, Sophia making racist comments. Each video was a damning indictment. "What makes this extraordinary," said Dr. Harper, placing her hand on Zara's shoulder, "is that Thomas wasn't just building a case. He was giving Zara something more valuable than money, the power to change a system. What the Reynolds family failed to understand was that this young woman possessed something Thomas sought in vain among his relatives: genuine compassion. When Thomas offered Zara revenge against her oppressors, she hesitated, not from fear, but because she had a more ambitious vision than punishment. "I don't just want to see them lose," she had confessed during one of their hospital room conversations. "I want them to understand what they did." William lunged toward Zara. "This is outrageous. I'll contest this will in every court." 2 security guards appeared discreetly. Miller had anticipated everything. "By what right?" Zara asked calmly. "What right exactly, Mr. William? The right to be born a Reynolds? Because the only right you've consistently exercised is degrading people you consider inferior." Dr. Harper opened her briefcase and removed a tablet. "Thomas prepared something special for you all." An aerial photo of a rundown housing development appeared. "Do you recognize this place?" Dr. Harper asked. Margaret scoffed. "Why would we know some slum?" "Because your family owns it," Dr. Harper replied. "These lands were secretly acquired by Thomas's grandfather 65 years ago when he displaced 180 families to build the company's first commercial center. The properties in Appendix A aren't mansions or luxury condos. They're parcels of land your family acquired through questionable means over decades." "What relevance does that have?" Nathan hissed. Zara finally smiled, not in triumph, but with purpose. "It's simple. Those properties now belong to me." Her voice strengthened. "And I've already signed documents transferring them back to the families who live there, free of charge." The room erupted. William knocked over a chair. Sophia openly wept. "You don't understand," Zara continued. "I don't want your money. I want justice. And justice means returning what was wrongfully taken." Miller raised his voice slightly. "There's more. The transfer of company shares to Zara is already registered. Her first act as majority shareholder was approving compensation for all unjustly terminated employees from the past decade." "That will ruin the company!" William shouted. "Years of work destroyed by petty revenge." "It's not revenge," Zara replied, her eyes reflecting not hatred, but resolve. "It's restoration. There's a fundamental difference." "Watch this," Dr. Harper commanded, activating the wall-mounted screen. A breaking news bulletin showed crowds of former employees streaming through the Reynolds building doors, clutching compensation letters, embracing each other with tear-streaked faces. "Perfect timing, isn't it?" Dr. Harper remarked, checking her watch. "The media coverage aligns precisely with our meeting here." "You've orchestrated our downfall," Margaret hissed, her manicured fingers gripping the armrests until her knuckles whitened. Zara rose silently and crossed to the panoramic windows overlooking the city skyline. The afternoon sun caught her profile as she turned. "Downfall? No, Mrs. Margaret. Think of it as evolution. Yes, stock prices will fluctuate temporarily, but markets always recover." Her voice hardened. "The difference lies in who benefits from that recovery." William's laughter held an edge of desperation. "You're delusional. Running a corporate empire requires decades of experience and connections you simply don't possess. This is a child playing with matches." "You're absolutely right about one thing," Zara acknowledged, surprising him. "I lack the necessary experience, which is precisely why I won't be running anything." Miller tapped his tablet screen. The mahogany doors swung open as 5 individuals entered, their clothing practical and modest, their expressions determined. "Allow me to introduce Reynolds Enterprises. New executive board," Zara announced. "These are the visionaries your father silenced when they advocated for worker protections. People whose innovations you dismissed because their names weren't on the right alumni directories." A man with salt and pepper hair stepped forward. "We've met before, William. I'm Michael Torres, 22 years in financial operations until you terminated me for suggesting employees deserve a stake in the company they build." "This crosses every line," Nathan slammed his fist on the table, "handing our birthright to the help." "Too late," Dr. Harper said, her smile unwavering. "The corporate restructuring was finalized before dawn today. Your minority shares remain intact," she continued. "Dividend checks will arrive quarterly. Consider yourselves fortunate passive investors." William slumped back, the blood draining from his face. "My father would never betray his legacy like this." "This isn't betrayal," Zara replied softly. "This is your father finally understanding what legacy truly means. Not bank accounts and property deeds, but human dignity restored." Sophia surged to her feet. "My social media followers will hear about this travesty. My producer friends will expose your little coup." Zara simply nodded to Miller, who tapped his screen again. The wall display flickered to show Sophia at a company gala, drink in hand, viciously mocking the ethnicity of household staff while her friends laughed. "There's much more," Zara said quietly. "Every slur, every humiliation, every moment you thought no one who mattered was watching." "What sick game is this?" Nathan asked, his arrogance crumbling to reveal naked fear. "What do you want?" "Education," Zara answered. "I want you to experience what millions live with daily, being judged not by your abilities or character, but by prejudices about your skin color, accent, or zip code." Michael stepped forward. "We're not dismantling what took generations to build, we're transforming it. Your father recognized our value even when you couldn't see past our uniforms." Dr. Harper distributed sealed envelopes. "2 paths lie before you. Fight us through the courts for years while we release evidence of systematic discrimination throughout Reynolds Enterprises. Or choose transition." "What transition?" William asked, traces of his trademark confidence finally extinguished. "You retain your homes and receive monthly stipends," Miller explained. "In exchange, you complete a year-long immersion program, volunteering in communities you've exploited, cultural competency training, ethics education, seeing the world through unfamiliar eyes." "And if we refuse this re-education?" Margaret challenged, though her voice already admitted defeat. Zara approached her directly. "There's no punishment beyond natural consequences. The footage becomes public. Class action lawsuits proceed uncontested. Your family name becomes synonymous with the exploitation Thomas wanted desperately to correct." The silence stretched like an abyss between them. One by one, realization dawned across their faces. They faced not merely a teenager's revenge, but a fundamental reconstruction of their reality. "This house of cards will collapse," William muttered, clinging to his last threads of superiority. "You're barely an adult. This empire requires—" "That's exactly what you've never understood," Zara interrupted, genuine compassion in her eyes. "This was never an inheritance to be hoarded. It wasn't yours then, and it isn't mine now. It belongs to everyone whose labor built it, floor by floor, year after year." She returned to the window, gazing at the city spread before her. a landscape of possibilities reborn. What the stunned Reynolds family couldn't yet comprehend was that this wasn't merely about justice for one family's sins. The quiet teenager they had belittled was igniting a transformation that would spread far beyond that boardroom, challenging institutions that had maintained identical patterns of inequity for generations. The paperwork said, inheritance. But what Thomas had really passed on was the courage to imagine something better. While the privileged elite trembled, something remarkable began flourishing in overlooked communities. Genuine hope sparked not from hollow rhetoric, but from tangible actions that, for the first time, placed decision-making power in the hands of those society had rendered invisible. 6 months passed since that fateful will reading. The headquarters of Reynolds Enterprises, once a monument to exclusivity, now housed a vibrant learning center on its main floor, where young people from underserved neighborhoods received free training in business development, digital skills, and advocacy. Zara moved through the building's corridors, greeting every employee by name, a practice Thomas had attempted to establish, but his family had dismissed as unnecessary. The walls, previously adorned with costly European masterpieces, now showcased artwork from local creators from marginalized backgrounds. Last quarter's revenue increased by 15%, reported Michael Torres, now Chief Financial Officer. The Employee Profit Sharing Initiative has exceeded expectations. Workplace engagement metrics are breaking records. Zara nodded appreciatively. And progress on the housing initiative at the former estates? Nearly 250 families have received permanent ownership documents, answered Dr. Harper, who oversaw the community responsibility initiatives. The worker-owned businesses launch operations next month. What astonished outside observers most was how effortlessly Zara navigated the corporate environment, as though she belonged there naturally. Despite being only 18 and completing her final semester of high school, she dedicated 4 hours daily to the company, delegating operational decisions to the board while maintaining firm control over the strategic vision. Her remaining time divided between her advanced studies at the private academy that had offered her a full scholarship through her newly established foundation, and caring for her mother Elaine, who finally received proper medical treatment. In a downtown cafe, William stared bitterly at the new Reynolds Enterprises billboard. The slogan, "Creating an Equitable Tomorrow," appeared beside an image of Zara with the diverse executive team. His designer suits had been replaced by off-the-rack clothes, his luxury vehicles sold to cover mounting debts. He alone among the Reynolds family had rejected Zara's proposal, too arrogant to accept the awareness program, preferring courtroom battles where he lost every case while watching his reputation crumble beneath the damning videos Thomas had methodically compiled. William's phone vibrated with a notification. Entry-level assistant position, Social Reintegration Program. He had reached rock bottom, actually considering employment at the company he once viewed as his birthright. On the same street, Sophia struggled with materials for a diversity education workshop. After her post mocking Zara went viral for all the wrong reasons, destroying her influencer career, she became the first family member to embrace the awareness program. "William," she called hesitantly. He looked up, shame evident in his expression. "The program, it's not what we thought," she admitted. "It's actually been life-changing. Zara doesn't want our destruction. She genuinely wants our transformation." The tears William had fought to contain finally broke free. At company headquarters, Zara led discussions with international investors intrigued by the socially responsible business model she had implemented. Journalists waited in the reception area for interviews about the success story already being studied at leading business schools. "I don't comprehend your approach," remarked a London-based investor. "Why not completely punish that family? Their treatment of you was abhorrent." Zara smiled with quiet confidence.